Okay, boss. Let's start. So in the last class, we've been seeing about. One second. The system is stuck. Okay, boss. In the last class, we've been seeing about the attribute view. We understood this is more like a mass data view, and it can be used in analytical view. And we can also create hierarchies in attribute views with level based or parent child. And we have different types of attribute views. One is standard, time, and derived. And the standard is like normal. You use the tables and derive the view. In case of time-based attribute view, you're going to use the standard tables from sysbi and basically create your time-based attribute view. And then in case of derived, you already have an attribute view, and based on the existing attribute view, you create a derived one. In case of derived, you can only change the description, like nothing else can be changed. So, so when you're creating attribute view, you get to give the name and the label and the package under which the view is getting created, and the type of view is attribute view. Now we can also use a copy from to create an attribute view which is already existing and create a copy of it. And the subtypes of attribute view, you see standard, time, and derived views. Yeah. And when you get into the screen where you basically create your attribute view, you'll have scenario and details block. As part of scenario, you'll have data foundation and semantics in it. And depending on the node what you select, you get to see the details block. As part of data foundation, you basically specify the list of tables and specify the relation between the tables in form of a join. You can use as part of data foundation, you basically specify the list of tables and join them. And as part of semantics, you basically list out the columns, what is being listed out, projected, and then you also define the key attribute for it. Yeah. And as part of hierarchies tab, you basically go about creating hierarchies which could be level based or parent child based. Then you'll have a tab called, in the details, you'll have a tab called properties where you can control the properties of the view. Yeah. So let's see the properties one by one, data category and all this stuff. One second, that is stuck again. Okay. Now when you get into this attribute view, the semantics, you see some set of properties of the view. Yeah. This is the technical name of the view here. This is the technical name of the view, and this is the name of the package under which the view has been defined. And this is the description of the view. You can, this is more for user to understand this view. And then you see a property called data category bus. Very important. For an attribute view, data category is always dimension. Data category property will be always a dimension, because of which you cannot use measures into this attribute views. Because the data category is a dimension, you are not allowed to use measures into your attribute view. And then you see the next property as a type of attribute view. You've seen there are different types of attribute views, right? Standard, derived, and time. And this property type will tell you whether it is a standard or it's been derived, or it has been a standard one or derived or time based attribute. Suppose if it is been derived, this property will tell you what is the base attribute view from which it is been derived from. For example, internet seems to be slow today. So if you see the derived view, you get to see that property saying base attribute view from which it has been derived from. Yeah. Then you have property called analytical privileges. This will basically have two things. One is analytical privileges or SQL analytic privileges. Two different things. Suppose you would like to provide authorizations on the view directly, then you will say analytical privilege. Suppose if you want to provide authorizations based on the column view, which was deployed from this attribute view, then you go with SQL. Okay. So we have two things. One is analytical privileges and SQL analytical privileges. If you want to control the authorizations on the data based on the view directly, then you'll go with analytic privileges. Okay. And you have an option. If you go with SQL analytical privileges, normally when you activate this attribute view, it is going to create a column view in SysBig schema. When you want to control authorizations by using the column view, then you will go with SQL analytical privileges. If you want to control the view using analytical privileges, then it will be a normal directly on the view, it will be analytical privileges. If it is based on the column view of the attribute view, then you go with SQL analytical privileges.
Hello.
Hello?
Sir, your voice is frequently breaking, sir. So we are getting disturbance.
Now is it fine?
Yeah, no point, sir.
Yeah. Then there's a property called client. Okay. You'll have something called session client or cross client. Generally, this makes this property becomes important when you're working on tables from SAP. But most of your SAP tables will have a field called mandate, which is basically which indicates the client terms. Client for all the client dependent tables, you'll have a field called mandate. You'll have information about different clients like 100, 101, any three-digit number you'll have, or 000 or 800 something. Okay. Now, for example, if you set this as cross client, okay, if you set this as cross client, you'll be able to view data for all the client database. You'll be able to see data for all the clients. Okay. Suppose if you set this as session client, if you set this as session client, now every user login, every user would be associated with certain client here. In the user properties, you can be associated with certain session client here. Let's say 800 or 810. In that case, when this particular user logs in and tries to run this view, and when he gets connected to the HANA database, for that session, it will set that client and he'll be able to see data only for it, only for that particular client. For example, if the user session client is 100, when he tries to see this view, he'll be able to see data only for this client as 100. Okay. Okay. That is your cross client or session client. But if you're not logging in with your name, I'm going to disconnect you. Okay. So that's your session client.
Hello.
This thing. Okay. For example, let's say, let me use
Sir, is that sorry? Sir, is that kind of row level security in BO?
something like, but Z, yeah, similar to that. Yeah. So
Okay,
just
thank
creating some attribute view. So now I have this field mandate here, something sales document type. Now let's say we set this as cross client, and when I try to see this view, I get to see data for all the clients. I see there's only one information, 800. Okay, but there's only one client, which is 800 here. That's fine. Okay, but let's say now for my system user, let's say I set this client as. See, what is this client set it as? 810, right? Okay. Now I'll go to this view and I'll set this as, if I set this as session client, my session would be 810, right? And if I try to see the data, it has show me data for 810, but there's no data for 810. There is data for, okay. There is data for 810, it is showing me data only for 810 here. But if I set this as cross client, I get to see data for 800 as well as 810. All I can see everything. Basically, I need to increase this. So I got 810. I'm getting to see all this client in all the client information. That is your session client or cross client. So when you want to filter the data based on the client, what he logs in, then you go with session client. Irrespective of the client what he logs in, if you want him to see data for all the clients, then you will say cross client.
Sir, sir, these clients are derived in only development system, right? In development, we have 800, 810, 820.
Normal,
That like that, right?
that is not our numbers. Only when you refer to the tables from SAP, which are client dependent, this property makes sense. See, in this table, I'm using a table which has got mandate column, which is a client dependent table, then this makes sense. If I'm using some normal non-SAP tables where there's no mandate or no client, then this does not make sense here. Okay. Then I don't know this property, that's a very default number, but there's some other next property called enable history. If you remember, we were dealing with some tables which are enabled as history, history enabled table, for example, that will not make any difference now, but we'll see that later when you go with calculation view or analytical view. But uh, I don't know what was a table for. But if you're not logging with your name, I'm going to disconnect. Please log in with your name. Yeah. So this was my history enabled table. Yeah. You see this symbol, the like clock like symbol. Remember when you want to deal with time traveling queries, we create an history enabled session tables, right? So these are the ones here. So when you're using these kind of tables, you enable the property called enable history. But what happens when you enable history, we'll see that later. Yeah. It is giving error because this is the error you might have get, right? Generally, it says depth no attributes. Let me give this. You might get error with the authorizations because it says deploy so and so. It says insufficient privileges. Look at the error. It says insufficient privileges here. Yeah. So grant a select on your schema. Okay. It clearly tells you. Yeah. Okay. So what I do is let me grant him the access for the schema 9 cubex SQL to sysray purpose. Grant select on schema 9 cubex SQL. With grant option so that he can. Now I should be able to activate this. It goes through. So when you're using history enabled tables into the view, we enable the checkbox enable history. But how does that get affected when you're seeing data? We'll see that when you're dealing with calculation view or analytical views. Because when you go with calculation analytical view, you can try to see data based on, because reporting is generally done on analytical view or calculation view, right? That's why you have that option only with analytical view or calculation, where when you enable history, you have to specify the timestamp for which you would like to see the date, because you remember for history tables you try to see as of UTC timestamp, or right? So when you pass in the timestamp, based on the timestamp validity, it gives you the values from that view. Yeah. The next you have something called cache validation. ఎవడా చెప్తే అర్థం కదా. You'll have something called cache invalidation period. Okay. Generally, whenever you run reports on this view, it does fill first time. It tries to fill the cache. Now what I want is, after certain timing, I want the cache to be invalidated. I want to free the space for the cache. Then I can see if I say hourly, every hour the data from this cache will be freed up for this view. If it is daily after every day, the data from the cache will be cleaned up for this view. Yeah. Okay. May I know who is this? Who is joined with the name as waiting for name? Yeah. Hello. Hello. And then it is about just freeing up the cache space, nothing else. Then there's a property called generate concatenate attributes. Generally, this checkbox is important when you're dealing with tables which has got multiple fields. Now let me show you one. Multiple primary keys. Okay. Let's say I'm creating a view for mat plant. I think we had something on mat plant. Now let me create some table. Or some table need not be primary key. So I have two columns, department number and department name, and some. I want both as key. Since both the columns are referred from the same key. One second. Now let's say I want to use both these columns, department number and department name, as the columns. Now generally what happens, only department number is the primary key in this table, right? Now what I want, let's say I am using another table, let's say employee, and let's say I'm trying to join these two columns here. Just, I know this is no meaning, but let's say the join is done on two columns. Now when the join is done on two columns, what happens? It says the join condition would be what? Department dot department number is equal to employee dot ID, and department dot department name is equal to employee dot name. So the join will be on two columns. So my intention is to speed up, let's say to speed up my join, what I want, I'll say like this. When I enable this as generate concatenate attributes, what happens? Internally, internally system will build an extra column in both these tables saying it maintains one more column which will basically concatenate both this department number and name. It will concatenate the value of department number and name together as one column, and even in this table it formats one more extra column internally with the ID and name together and leverages that column for joining. So then it will be department dot concatenated column, which is the result of department number and name, is equal to employee dot concatenated column, which is the result of ID and name. So internal, when the join is done on multiple columns, internally it formats one system column which actually holds the concatenated value of both these columns, and then that this column will be used for joining this. So when I use this option, it improves my join performance, but it affects my database performance, because apart from storing the column 1, column 2, It also allocates certain memory to store the concatenated value of both column 1 and column 2, which is leveraged for joining bus. So this is your view properties. Yeah.
Sir, could you explain SQL privileges?
Can you be louder, please?
Sir, could you please explain the SQL privileges once again?
Yeah.
Sir?
See, when you say apply privileges, there will be two things. One is analytical privileges, SQL analytic privileges. When you say analytical privileges, you're controlling the row level security based on the view. You're using the view bus, okay? But say, when you activate the view, does it actually create a column view for you in Sysbig schema? If you want to control authorizations based on that column view, then it will be SQL privileges. If you want to control by using the name of the view, straight away the attribute view, then it will be analytical privileges. If you want to control authorizations based on the column view of this attribute view, then it will be SQL privileges. Okay?
And sir, if we keep it as blank,
Sorry,
so no issues of authorization.
I don't understand. What is it?
This apply privileges. When we go for this apply privileges option,
Yeah.
and if we go for blank, we have a space as well.
It means if you say space, you're not accepting it for any privileges. There will be no
I mean, no authorization.
no.
Oh.
You'll provide authorizations for this view, but let's say within this view there is a column called country. You would like to provide, say, user one has got access to country India. User one has got data access to country China. So when you want to control that row level security, you cannot do this when the apply privilege is blank. If you want to control row level security on this view, then by using the view, then it is analytical privileges. If you want to have row level security by using the column view of the attribute view, then it will be SQL privileges. Yeah.
Sir, one more follow-up question, sir.
One more.
So when can you explain a scenario when we'll go with SQL analytical privileges and when we'll go for go with analytical privileges?
Yeah, basically if you see when you're creating the user here, you'll have two things here. One is your object privileges, one is your analytic privileges here. We'll see this as a separate topic. So let's say I just look at this here. I've just created some privilege here in 6 cubics. Okay. This is for your previous batch, but see here, I actually created a privilege here on some view saying that was proceed, but saying where country is so and so. Yeah, I'm not filling this country fixed here. I'm using a procedure, but I've set this privilege here, and this privilege is created on this view, and this analytical privilege has been assigned to this user bus. This is what analytical privilege is. Yeah. Now, if you want to go with object privileges, SQL privileges, it will be this. You have to go to these privileges and you specify which column view you want to have provide the access with. So you say ZAT BP00. See, it is showing you this. What is this? This is your column views. 9 cubics pk dot model slash. This is actually column view, not the view bus. So now you're controlling authorizations based on normal with the SQL. This is SQL privileges. You're providing whether you can do select on this or not. This is on the column view, catalog object. Yeah? But when you are providing authorizations on analytical view, the content of the view, then it will be analytical privileges. Okay. So when you say SQL privileges, it's only on the column view you can provide. If you say analytical privileges, you can provide it on the view with the row level security on the analysis similar to your analysis authorizations in or row level security in BOBus. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Sir, once again for that blank, what you said?
Blank means it
As
is
you
not
said
applicable for authorizations. Every user will get to see every data. Yeah.
Okay.
Because even in BW, when you want to enable authorizations, first thing is for this infobit, you should enable that authorization relevant checkbox. So same way, if when you want this view to be used for authorizations, yes or no, this is what you enable this property. If it is blank, this view will, the content of this view cannot be enabled for authorized security authorizations. If you want it to be enabled based on analytical privileges, then this is the one. If you want to control it based on the catalog objects, then it is SQL privileges. Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, one more thing. So regarding generate contact attributes, so we have added a department number and employee number, and so both need to be as a primary key or a partial primary key also we can assign.
Generally, let's say, for example, this is the scenario. You have mat and plant. Okay, let's say some color. Yeah. So this is one table. Yeah. So in this, if this is the table, already you would have identified these as primary key boss. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let's say there's another table like order ID, where you got mat and where you got plant and where you got something like say order value. Yeah? Now what you're trying to do is, I'm trying to join the, and in this table order ID is a primary key boss. Now I'm trying to join these two tables saying, let's say this is table 1. So I'm saying table 1 dot mat is equal to table 2 dot mat. Table 1 dot plant is equal to table 2 dot plant. Okay. Now if you look at this, in this case, mat and plant are primary key boss. But in this case, mat and plant are not primary key, right? Even then, concurrent attributes will still work. So it'll say mat plant. It creates one more hidden column which you will not see, which will store the concatenation of both values. Let's say it is M1 and P1. Let's say it is M1 and P1. It will store M1, P1 here. It will have a concurrent attribute here also, mat plant, which will have M1, P1. Now instead of joining saying table 1 dot mat is equal to table 2 dot mat and table 1 dot plant equal to table 2 dot plant, it joins on this one. Table 1 dot mat plant is equal to table 2 dot mat plant. So it will have a concatenated value which will be used for joining this. Now you understand this? But only thing is when you got to go with generate concatenated attributes, makes sense only when the join is performed on more than one column. If the joining is on single column, generating concatenated attributes does not make any sense. Only when the join is performed on multiple columns, generating concatenated attribute makes sense, which in turn generates an extra column in the back end of the table, which will hold the concatenated values of both the columns and leverage that column for the join. In that case, it improves join performance, but it will be affecting my database performance. That's why it says they give a message here. You see, when you keep cursor here, it says, if you set to true, engine will create additional concatenate attributes for all the columns in the physical tables that are used in any multi-column join of the view. You understand that message?
Yeah.
So that's why, and you see the warning, these properties may affect the output data. Please set them cautiously. Means this is going to affect your database performance. So it is very critical to understand whether to enable it or not. Yeah. So if you set to true, engine will create additional concatenated attributes for all the columns in the physical table that are used in any multi-column join of the view. Okay, boss? Yeah.
Sir, so because checking this check button, so we should know there are tables joined with multiple columns.
Exactly, because you would have defined the view. When you feel that the tables have been joined with multiple join columns, then this property makes sense. Doesn't mean that in the real time, you will not enable this checkbox every time there are two columns, boss. I will only enable this. Let's say there is a view where the join was done on two columns and the performance is bad, then I will prefer this checkbox. So I will not say every time there is a join between two columns, enable this, because this is costly. Because in memory concept, we need to reduce the space required to store, right? So that's where I would focus. I would really enable this only if the performance is really bad. Otherwise, no. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else?
Sir, in columns tab, we have one option, right, hidden. So what is that meaning, sir? Can you come to columns tab?
I'll come. See,
Okay,
when
fine.
you hide,
Okay, got it.
simple. When you hide, this column is not shown.
Okay.
If you hide, okay, for example, దీంట్లో work that is only for this is also dummy one. Say if I go into this, let's say projecting all this right now. Okay. Now let's say I set this as hide was, and this column will not be shown. You'll not get to see that column. So now you should ask me a next question saying, then instead of selecting this column and hiding in, I will not select this column at all. Yeah. Instead of selecting the column and hiding in, I'll not select the column. It is as good as not selecting the column from the table, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. So the answer to that question is, look at this. Say for example, simple one. Next street ఎలా ఉందో తెలియదు. I want to see the data for the street. Hana. We'll see it for something like building. Okay, so building is like some number. Okay, 2 something. Okay, so I have something like this. I would like to have, apart from the columns what you're projecting, I can also build some calculate columns first. Okay, see, I can also build calculate column here. If you say new, in the calculate column, I'll be able to use only those columns into calculation what has been selected out. Let's say my requirement is I would like to build a logic, some calculation on the street, so I selected it. And then when I'm creating calculate column, I can use this street now. Yes. Yeah. Something I can use this into calculation like this, but I don't want that to be shown into the output. Then what I'll do? Then I can use hide. Okay. So when you're building a calculate column, I can only use those columns what is been selected onto the output. So I select some columns into the output to derive another column with the calculations, but I don't want to show these columns in. Then I can go with hide was. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, in case of concatenated columns,
Yeah.
the new column which has been concatenated, the new column will be created, right? That can be seen in m underscore cs underscore columns.
Yes, you can see that. Yes.
Okay, sir.
It will be coming as hidden column like dollar mat, dollar plant like that. Okay.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. In the view properties, you said the default member. Can we have the multiple values?
I told I don't know this property. I don't know about this.
Okay, fine, sir. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Anything else?
So this apply privileges concept, right?
Yeah.
So you will be explaining that with a scenario, right? Theoretically,
Yeah, privileges. When I come to the topic privileges, I'll show one privilege. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
I'll show with static privileges. I'll show with dynamic also with the procedure. Yeah.
Okay.
No, just
So what is the
understand,
difference between
we
this?
enable this property here to make sure that I can apply privileges on this view, yes or no. Once you say yes, how to apply privilege, that is a different topic again. Hello? This property is just to indicate that I want to enable this view for the privileges to be applied on it or not. Once you say yes,
Okay.
how to apply, that is a different concept again, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is the difference between that session client and the cross client?
Yeah. So, are you from SAP or non-SAP, boss?
Non-SAP.
Non-SAP. That's the problem. Generally, what happens uh, when you refer to the tables from SAP system, like from SAP Business Suite, like ECC or CRM, all those, you'll have two types of tables. One is client dependent and client independent. So when I say client independent, depending on the client what you log into the SAP system, the content what you see will be different. So for all those client dependent tables, you will have a field called client, which is called as mandate bus. So if that is the case, if I try to see this view content, you see data for multiple clients like this here. Say I have got data for 800, 810, 8, it could be n number of, these are the client information, client numbers, okay. So if I set this client value as cross session, default client is cross client, my users will be able to see data for all the client information across, okay. But if I set this as session client, okay,
Only particular client will.
yeah, if I set that as session client, when I say session, so I created a screen session here. This each screen is one session. So this for an user. So when a user logs in and creates a session, you will be associated with some client here. Look at this. He can be associated with some client. Let's say while for the user properties, I've set the client as 810. Then if you say session client, and when I try to see, I will get to see only for, now for my user system, I've set the client as 810. And when I try to see with session client, I'll be able to allowed to see only for 810 only, not all. See, I get to see only because I've set the property as session client. Yeah.
Session client. Okay. Okay, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Can we have like multiple sessions with in here?
See, this is like session only, right? So, you have one, then I'm opening one more. Each one is like session only, right? Okay. These are sessions, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay, boss. Just read through. I'm just recollecting. Next about, I'm just showing, written the steps. How do we create a attribute? Simple. We know this. Add all the required tables in data foundation. Then if there is multiple tables, establish a join on those tables, and select the required fields from the tables in the data foundation. Then if required, if you're not satisfied, you can also create a calculate columns also. So here it is. So if you go to business partner, something, let's say, I have this field called company, which is my customer name, but I'm not happy with the name how it is coming up. It's just showing me like name of this, okay. But I want to project something like this. I want, say, so when you want to derive some, this will be derived columns or derived attributes. You can create your own calculate columns here. Say customer name, I'll say something like say 40. I can just use any of this function, or I can use plus for concatenating. company name. Some say CMP and then company name, or I want it as. So again, I'm using this plus operator as concatenate symbol here. So this is like derived column. You can calculate a new column. Now you get to see the customer name as CMP colon something. Like say from based on the existing columns, you want to derive some new columns. I can always go with the calculated columns. Yeah. Like say first name, last name, you want to get it as name, or you have some date. Then from the date you want to derive some financial year of filing or something. You can always do this calculation, deriving a new attribute with the calculate columns. And if you see this, you'll have some normal any screen. Generally, you'll have some functions, if functions, and you'll have conversion functions, convert int, convert raw, all those. Yeah. You'll have some string functions. You can leverage all this mathematical functions, string functions, date functions. You can bring current date with using now. You can just select anything, and you can get help from here. Okay, you can click on help, and you can read through those functions used in expressions. Then you can say date functions, and you can see. Okay. You can read through help from here, and whenever the function to be, you'll have a monthly days between, and you'll have some functions. Just go through this. Okay. So this is your creating calculate column. So if required, you can create a new calculate columns, but measures are not allowed here. Tell me. Yeah.
So when we are creating a calculated column, so the changes we are doing will be affected into the table, right?
Not into the table, only to the view projections. This virtual, see what are the calculations I've done, this is not reflecting into table. Only for the view output you get to see this column. Yeah?
Okay.
Not to the table, no. And then, and when you're doing calculate columns in attribute view, measures are not allowed, boss, only normal attributes. And then if required, you can also adjust the properties of those columns, what has been enabled. Now, if you get in here, in the data form, see, there are two difference here. In case of attribute view, in the data foundation itself, you can control the column properties. But in case of analytical view, you can control properties of this column only in star join. For example, if I open this analytical view, if I go into this, in data foundation, you will not be allowed to change any properties. Look at this. You can't change. In analytical view, you can't change. Only star join node, I can control the properties of this. I can change if required. Something. Yeah. But in case of attribute view, you can control the properties of the columns in data foundation itself. Okay. You can just check the name, label. Mapping is nothing but this column is being referred from which table it is. Length, all this fine. And important one would be key. There's something like key. But you can control this key here also. Whatever you say key attribute is nothing but the main primary key field. You can specify the key attribute here also. Like say for partner ID, I would have enabled key as true. Okay. We'll see this hierarchy drill later. This for such options. Say you're creating some model which you want to use in HANA native development, and you want to build some UI interface. If I say true here, fuzzy search is enabled, then what happens? Let's say for city column you enabled as fuzzy search, right? So when they're developing the UI, if they want an effect like this, they want to have some text box which says city. Fuzzy search is what? Fault tolerant search. Now let's say I select say HY. As soon as I type in HY like Ajax in Java, it will show me all possible strings which can hold with HY, HYD. It will show all the possible values there. మన గూగుల్ ఎట్లా వస్తుందన్న ఇలా ఇప్పుడు హెచ్వై అది కొడుతున్నా ఇట్లా వస్తుంది పాసిబుల్ వాల్యూస్ అలాగా వెన్ యూ వాంట్ గెట్ దట్ ఈస్ వేర్ యూ ఎనేబుల్ ఫజీ సెర్చ్. So if you enable fuzzy search for this column, so in the HANA native development, when they map this, let's say for city I do this. if I say this, and you can give the ranking. You remember fuzzy search will have some weightage. You remember this was, and the lower the number, it is like high. You know what is fuzzy search, right? I showed you in the SQL fault tolerant search, and 1.0 is exact and 0.0 is chana duram. So I am saying till 0.8, anything which is having weightage till 0.8 recommended was, yeah. Then when user types in something which is similar to those with having weightage 0.8 will be listed bottom, so they can select from there. That is what fuzzy search is, yeah. Okay, but that will have major effect when you binding this HANA views with the UI elements in HANA native development, yeah. Okay, like this you can control the column properties. And one more thing, can we also apply filters, boss? Yes, in the data foundation, can I apply filters? You know how to apply filter. Like say I want to see data only for one country, I can say right click, apply filter, and say, if I say D, then what about this view will show data only for DE country only. You get to see, like this, you can also apply filters in the data foundation. There's one point which I'll park it for side, but here, look at this. You'll not understand this now, but say, the question is, can I make filtering dynamic in attribute view? As it is, there is no option, but we can still use, there's something called, there's a concept called placeholder of input parameters, and we can make it dynamic. In the take a point, you'll get confused now, but still, see, when I go to attribute view in the semantics, you don't have any variables or input parameters in attribute view, not possible. But still, I can use some placeholder. I'm just trying to explain, but we'll see that later. I can fix a parameter like this, $IP_REG. I can place a placeholder. Okay, there's no value passed in here. When I use this attribute view into analytical view, okay, in analytical view, I'll create an input parameter and pass this parameter value to that parameter what is used in attribute views. Did someone understood this? See, normal filtering we can apply. The question is, can I make the filter in attribute view dynamic? Yes, we can use this placeholder input parameters, but this input parameters starts getting meaning only when you start using them into analytical view or calculation view. So we'll see that topic later when you're dealing with the other views there. Okay, there's some concept called mapping of input parameters which we deal with. Just for now, understand. Sir, it is. Just for now, we can understand saying in attribute view we can apply filters. Filtering could be dynamic or fixed values. If it has to be dynamic filtering in attribute view, we use a concept called placeholder of input parameters. Ante actual logic is this. I'll explain, but we'll show you later. But see, I have this input parameter. I just maintained some fixed parameter name. Okay. Then when I use this attribute view into some analytical view, here I'll create an input parameter with same name, IP_REG, collect the value of this parameter and pass this value to this parameter, and then the view gets executed. Understood a little bit? Attribute view does not have a concept called input parameter. Yes, but still I can have some fixed input parameter placeholder given there. And then when I use this attribute view to analytical view, in analytical view I'll create a parameter called IP_region with same name and pass that value to this, pass the value of this parameter to the parameter what is placeholder used in attribute views. Attribute view lo parameter input parameter oppukodu. కానీ మనం ఫిక్స్డ్ గా ప్లేస్ హోల్డర్ పెట్టి ఇన్పుట్ పారామీటర్ పెట్టేసి దీన్ని ఒక అనలిటికల్ వ్యూలో వాడి అనలిటికల్ వ్యూలో ఒక ఇన్పుట్ పారామీటర్ అదే పేరుతో క్రియేట్ చేసి ఆ ఇన్పుట్ పారామీటర్కి వచ్చిన వాల్యూని ఈ అట్రిబ్యూట్ వ్యూలోని ఇన్పుట్ పారామీటర్ వాల్యూ పాస్ చేయొచ్చు అనమాట. దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ as, then that we can make your input parameter also dynamic, which is we call it as place or input parameter with placeholder. We'll deal that when you get onto calculation views. Okay. And then in the semantics, you define the key field. What is the primary key? See, in support by SP8, it was mandatory, but SP9, this probably is not mandatory, but still makes sense to enable, which is a key attribute for you. We can define the semantics for the columns, what has been selected, and we can also define hierarchies in this. Because semantic which will be important for you for the label kind of stuff. So I have this attribute view, analytical view, which is used for reporting, right? I would like to do reporting on this. There's one property called label. You can finish it up now. Yes. So I'm using this partner ID, and when I right click on this, I have an option called member display key, or I can say text also. So similar to your BW, where you can have key and text from the text table, we can manage the same thing from HANA also. Like, so if you get in, let's open this BP001. Okay, see now what I want is for partner ID, I want to show the company name as text. So you can say label column, drop down, set that as company name. So for partner ID, I've set my company name as my label was. Make sure it is reflected here and activate. So when I use this partner ID, అది రిఫ్రెష్ కలవ రేపు అవుతుంది. And when I say text, when I say key and text, it will start showing the company name as a text box. Okay, that is okay, right? We'll see that report output tomorrow. By tomorrow it will be refreshed. Yeah. So that's the property, and calculate column you've seen, and then now we have to get into hierarchies. Now we'll start with it. Tomorrow we'll see about hierarchies and hierarchy types, and there's some properties in hierarchies.
Sir, just going off the track.
Yeah.
Sir, as we were discussing about procedures, you said that when we create procedure in catalog, it has only the runtime object and we are not able to edit it.
Yeah.
So, shall we take it for granted that whenever we are going to create procedures, we will create it in the content folder?
Yeah, you can. That's a better way of doing it.
And same is the case with functions as well.
Functions you can't create in the content.
Okay, those needs to be created in catalog.
Catalog, yeah. Only for procedure you have option either catalog or content.
Achha. So it's better to go with the content.
Yeah.
To be on the safe side. Oh.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, will you please send videos as soon as this completes, because in weekend if you wanted to practice it is a bit difficult.
Yeah, but this presentation I've already sent. You already have this.
Not presentation, videos. I mean daily class videos I'm asking.
Yeah. Daily. For me, because it takes a lot of time to upload, no? I have to sit down. That's the problem. Okay, I'll upload it today. Okay.
Yeah, because we will have some time to practice. If we don't get it weekend also, it's
Okay.
a problem.
I'll do that. I'll send it. Okay, I'll send it. No problem.
It will be troublesome for you, but yes, it will be of great help for us.
Okay. I'll send it today. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Sir, this as well, today's recording as well?
Yeah, I'll send it today's also. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.